Welcome to this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters, the podcast we chart the cinematic legacy of the classic monsters. I'm John Campbell. With me, as always, Brendan Jones.
Hello, listeners. Hello, John.
Hello, Brendan.
When I say hello, listeners, do you ever hear them reply at all?
It's faint. They're quiet.
Okay. All right.
But
yeah,
it's there.
I just need to. I'll work on the volume on my end.
Yeah.
John, would it be okay today if we talk about a movie that I really, really wanted to like?
You know, I think it is because I really, really wanted to like this movie too. And I really, really wanted to like this movie when it came out too.
Me too.
Man,
Me too.
I have never had more goodwill towards a movie maybe than this.
I mean, the concept, though poorly executed, but the concept is fine.
Yeah.
Because in a weird way, it's just the Dracula story, but it kind of shifted over. But you just look at all the talent involved.
Ugh.
Every actor, I mean, with the exception of one guy who I didn't know who the heck he was or what career he had after, but he's fine enough. But I'm sitting there looking at this thing going, and a guy who's at the top of his game at this point.
This is a prime example to me of peak stardom vanity project.
Yeah. That's one of the faults. Is that
I can do
vanity,
anything I want, and I want to do this. And
yeah, this is blank check territory.
There absolutely, and there is nobody telling him, I don't know. And you need that.
Let's give another. Let's do another pass on this script.
Well, when you see who wrote this thing, though, it starts to become obvious.
Charlie Murphy.
Who, of course, was a very funny guy.
No, of course, and you can see that, and he didn't write it alone. There were co-writers.
But yes, we are talking about 1995's Vampire in Brooklyn.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way.
Oh, man. Which, once again, when you pitched it, I remember when this came out, and I was like, oh, my God, a vampire movie with at this time, and he's still one of my favorites, but at this time, he is my favorite movie star. I love this man. He could do no wrong in my book at this point.
Even in a wobbly... Well, it's not even wobbly. This is just not a good movie. But even here, the man's charm is unbelievable.
Well, and I actually think one of the problems is they don't take enough advantage of that. Of course, is one of the.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting how even like weak. But maybe I'm looking at this actually. He's on a down slope here. Although he's about to get me back the next year with Nutty Professor. So.
Which
is hilarious, and I actually just watched that somewhat recently again because there was a new Shout Factory.
The first Nutty Professor,
hilarious.
It's great.
It's hilarious, and it's
it's also the way to do a reboot, which is it didn't just follow. It took the concept obviously from the original Jerry Lewis, but I never felt the Jerry Lewis film was disrespected.
No,
that's a classic. I love it. I can easily watch this one.
It really
and I think it has more heart than Jerry Lewis.
It absolutely does, and that's kind of why I lean towards the Eddie Murphy one. I have a ton of respect for the Jerry Lewis one, but the one I rewatch more is the Eddie Murphy one. But I also think it's a perfect example of taking a vehicle for one comedy persona and then remaking it as totally rejiggered for a new comedy persona. Like this.
Yeah.
This is the Eddie Murphy version of that story, and I think it's great. But anyway, I was saying this is coming off of. Beverly Hills Cop 3 was before this, and I've seen the first Beverly Hills Cop so many times. I adore that movie. I like Beverly Hills Cop 2 a lot as well. But
would you say that sometimes you find that you're doing the neutron dance?
Every once in a while, sure.
Okay.
And I still want to know: is this the man who ruined the buffet at the Herald Club? I just love that movie, man. What a great vehicle for it.
Yeah, I think it's about time for a rewatch for me because it's been years. But
we've got a new one. We've got a new one coming out next year. So
I just love. I mean, this period, Eddie Murphy. I mean, not this period because this is later. This is mid. I don't know.
This is kind of mid because I mean he's coming off of a few hits. Boomerang is great, and
sure.
I like the Distinguished Gentleman.
The Eddie Murphy phenomenon. I was so on board for.
Oh God,
and again, no one has a perfect career, so you just sit there going like, "Wow." When he exploded, you just like you said, the man can do no wrong.
No,
Anything he wants to do is going to work.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of times you and I quote Coming to America back and forth, because that movie is still one of the funniest movies ever made. And it's interesting that a lot of the stuff that worked in Coming to America, he tries to do here, and it does not work here.
Yeah, we need to talk about it.
Because I will say one of the biggest things well, it's not shocking to me because I know the reason for it is Beverly Hills Cop 3, but doesn't this seem like this was tailor-made to be directed by John Landis?
It does.
But they had a very acrimonious time on Beverly Hills Cop 3, a movie where John Landis has said, I showed up and Eddie refused to be funny.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the case here, too.
Except for when he thinks he can just push that button and make it work.
Yeah. It's a weird movie. This is a weird movie.
I will say this. The name I think the name of this movie should have been OCD Driver simply because it cannot pick a lane.
And this is the thing I love when horror and we've talked about this before, when horror and comedy come together and it works, a la American Werewolf in London or Fright Night or something like that. Boy, there's almost nothing I love more. Like, it is one of the most satisfying experiences. But here's an example where they just are colliding into each other and not working. They're colliding into each other,
and you're like, guys, you need to decide what this movie is, and they never did. Never did.
And it's not even just the movie; it's Eddie's performance too.
Yeah,
how am I supposed to feel about this character? I have no idea.
I know.
It's a mess. This movie is a mess. And
he is ferocious and charming. He's a true monster villain. And then they'll give him a quip.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well,
but also,
that's funny.
He's ferocious and charming, and he's a full-on villain. Well, that's a weird use of Eddie Murphy. Especially as like an Eddie Murphy vehicle. But then at the same time, I go...
Unless you leaned into it. Unless you said, then this is his breakout dramatic horror performance, and make the movie that... Because when you're trying to remind people of how funny he can be, then you're like, well, but you were trying to convince me of how scary he can be. Again, this isn't working.
Well, and it's really interesting because Eddie, this comes out of him being like, I'm a big horror guy. I love a monster movie. And he goes, get me the guy whose movies I love. He handpicked. Is this our first time talking about him on the show, Mr. Wes Craven? I don't think we've done a Craven movie up to this point, which is crazy.
Yeah, we haven't, because he didn't dabble with the classic monsters.
We're gonna have another one because we'll get to Cursed next season, which is his werewolf movie.
I've never seen Cursed
with Christina Ricci and Jesse Eisenberg.
Right, yes.
But yeah, he doesn't generally. Craven was kind of doing his own thing, Freddy Krueger, Last House on the Left, that kind of stuff. But
I don't really put the faults of this movie on him. I think it's solidly done.
He was handpicked by Eddie going, I love this guy's horror movies because, Craven to me it's like he's up there in that realm of Carpenter and stuff like that. Not that everything works, but there is a mastery of this genre that he has he showed over his career. And so I get that. But then it's interesting when I was reading the behind the scenes stuff on this, a lot of it is similar to John Landis' experience on Beverly Hills Cop 3, where Craven literally, Eddie came in going, I want this to be pure horror, straight horror. And it was Craven who goes, well, shouldn't we have some comedy in it? Otherwise we're going to kind of bait and switch the audience. And then it's that, but then he goes, he said he tried to direct him to play more levels to the character and make him more vulnerable. And Eddie just kept adding more quips. So it was sort of like, I mean, this does feel like, how could you? This is an Eddie Murphy show, and it's a shame to bring in someone as good as Wes Craven, who does the moments where the movie is supposed to be scary do kind of work, because Craven knows how to make them work. They don't work in a story context, but they work in a film. This is weirdly, like, that adds to the weirdness of the movie, pretty handsomely directed.
Yeah.
Which just further adds to the strange mixture of stuff going on here.
Again, it's just sort of when it needs to be one thing or another, it does. I mean, the comedy really only works because of the strength of, again, Eddie always casts a lot of this familiar faces, but go-to people
I
that
gotta
you can
say,
rely on.
it's John Witherspoon and
Anytime I see John Witherspoon, it's like
John
bring
Witherspoon and Kadeem Hardison in this movie, man. That's
Kadeem Hardison is working his ass off in this to try to make it work, and you're like, I know that you're the stand-in for Arsenio.
yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
literally,
yeah.
this is the Arsenio Hall role, but you are
100%.
doing a really good job with it.
He's doing real. And actually, the weirdest thing is it's mentioned several times in the trivia that Kadeem Hardison says, "This is the most fun I ever had doing anything." He's like the only person who speaks well of this movie, going, "I had a fucking blast on Vampire in Brooklyn."
Probably because it was a very high-profile thing, and also because the weight wasn't on him.
Right.
Like, in other words, he could have fun off in the fringes, and they could always say, well, we'll cut around him or pull that back a little bit. He was free, I think, just to do his thing, go as broad as he wanted to do, and they probably went, great.
Yeah. And it works because every time he's on screen, I'm going, I kind of like this. And especially when he and John Witherspoon, I'm going, this is actually funny. Those guys are funny.
That is all I need, really. And John Witherspoon,
that guy was just funny. You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
Where,
I always go back to Hollywood Shuffle.
Yep.
And the whole thing with him and Winky Dinky Dog, and him making the hoe cakes when Robert Townsend has that horrible fantasy of what happens when he becomes a big success, and the guy's just sitting on the sidewalk with like wine and hamburger buns, and he said, they're going, how many hoe cake you want? How many hoe? And he's like putting wine on the hamburger buns. He just, oh man.
And it does feel like every time John Witherspoon shows up, he's bringing that same energy for how many hoe cakes you want to this whole movie, just going like, how can I get in here to goose some laughs out of this thing, man?
Well, the people who are being leaned on for comedy in this movie are trying to work at that kind of level.
Yeah.
That energy is there because this is trying to be what if Coming to America had a horror vein.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of doing like, this is Eddie Murphy comedy movie level. Oh, I'm sorry. Is this totally wrong for this story with all the hearts being pulled out of chests and things like that?
That was the thing I was curious about when I went back and I watched the trailer, because I was curious how it was marketed. And it was marketed as, he's a new vampire in the big city. And it shows him getting shot at the beginning, going, interesting, and stuff like that.
I remember that. He's like going, it kind of tickled. It itches a little.
And I'm sure that's what I saw, where I'm going like, oh man, I love vampires and I love Eddie Murphy. I'm gonna love this movie. That's very much what I thought when it came out. I'm going, this is the best. And I am going for, and I do think Coming to America as a vampire could work if you really made it. The joke is he is a vampire in the city, but they want him to be legit Dracula.
Yeah, I know. I mean, this could have
weird.
It could have gone either way and been fine, but the problem is that it doesn't pick the lane. So either go horror and let Eddie Murphy do that, but you got to pull all that typical Eddie Murphy stuff.
And
back.
I think that movie would have
don't have a comedic preacher scene in it.
Oh my god! I think that movie might have been like a cult classic, but probably would have bombed if he had really gone at horror.
Or you do what this is also kind of trying to be, which is this is an Eddie Murphy love at first bite.
Yeah,
I mean, because they are doing the Dracula story, even though he's not Dracula, but it's the same beats. They've got the ship, they've got the dog, they've got all this stuff. It's like, they're doing Dracula.
The best.
They've got a Van Helsing.
They do. They don't do enough with him. They hardly do anything.
They don't
with
do enough with him, and he's great.
He is.
Great. Another guy I like. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I mean, is it Zakes or is?
I think it's.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
I think it's Zakes. That's how I'm pronouncing it, but I'm an ignorant American, so what do I know? But
he's great.
Oh, I mean, in so many great performances across his character actor career there. And then I think the person I feel the worst for is Angela Bassett, because she is actually caught in the middle of these things. She is pushed and pulled throughout this whole movie, and she is, I mean, it's one of those things where I don't even need to pump that up. We know Angela Bassett's a fucking amazing actress.
Can I say something else too?
Mm.
And this, okay, I know no one cares listening to the podcast, but I guess Brendan comes out as the guy who's extremely lonely. Because I will say this again, just like I said about Michelle Pfeiffer last week, this movie reminded me, if I needed to be reminded, young Angela Bassett, unbelievably gorgeous. And I'm
actually,
just sitting there going,
current day Angela Bassett is pretty stunning.
No, she is just like Michelle Pfeiffer. Really, she's aged gracefully. And she is still a beautiful woman. But here, when I look at this, it just made me hurt because there had been talk of her being Storm. And when I look at her, young Angela Bassett, because X-Men's just a few years away from this, and I'm sitting there going, yes, no offense to Halle Berry, who's a beautiful woman and a good actor when you give her the right roles.
She just didn't fit that part. That's
she did not have the regality, the kind of queenly thing that clearly is just built into Angela Bassett's DNA.
And what she does now, she's our Wakandan queen. So
I know it's missed opportunity casting. Is what it.
I almost feel like that in some ways.
You're absolutely right. She's not developed enough as a character. Her character's all over the place. She even is forced to be a couple points in this movie, a screaming or a damsel, and I'm like, no, don't do that.
Furious in those scenes where I'm going, that is the one of the things I never understood why, and she had a couple shots at it, but really she should have been an action lead. She had, the physicality
that wasn't in the brain. That wasn't in the zeitgeist.
You look at the woman; she's always been crazy fit, gorgeous. She's got the strength and the performance. I mean, all things you need to be Tina Turner, which she was fucking amazing in, of course. And
that's a real hot take.
That she was really good.
And Bassett was amazing, and what's love got to do with it?
She was pretty good in that. And then, and also, I'm so heartened by the fact that she and Courtney B. Vance have been together for like 25 years.
Again, that's a happy couple for me, because
that's a lot of talent in one family.
I know.
Right,
sometimes you sit there going, "Oh," for one or the other. Like, well, I'm glad they're happy, but in this case, you're like, "Oh, you're both great," and I hope that your offspring take over the world, because
you're just going like,
anyway.
Wow, they are both actors who anytime they show up in anything, I'm like, well, they'll be good, even if
I know.
And she's given it her all in this movie, but I think she is maybe the most victim of the tonal shifts in this movie, because she's ostensibly actually the main character of the movie, right?
Yes, and she's not embarrassed by this because she's too good to ever be embarrassed by it. But at the same time, she's not underused; she's underdeveloped. That's the problem. She's on the screen a lot, but you can just imagine her as an actor looking at the script, going, wait, so in this scene I'm supposed to be this kind of person, and this scene I'm supposed to be this kind of person. Here I'm a tough police detective. In this one I'm obviously I've got problems with my prophetic visions. People think I'm crazy in this one. Now I'm supposed to just be the hottest woman on the world. Now you're like, wow, what are they asking of you to do?
And all of that is true about Eddie Murphy's character. The only difference is you're the chief creative force here, Eddie. So I don't feel bad for you. You're the one fucking it up.
Yes.
And I get that sense where it seems like everybody here is going, what are we going to do, Eddie? Including Wes Craven, who seems like, great, this is kind of a fun, different thing for me. What do you want to do? And day to day, it seems like he didn't know.
Or he just had a different idea day to day.
And also, boy, oh boy, it just, what are you trying to talk about the Vanity Project? Also, it's like, every time he's like, I'm going to be the sexy guy now. It's like, well, you're not a bad looking guy, but I can feel Eddie going, I'm sexy in this.
That's
I'm
why
feeling
I said
Eddie Murphy
Vanity
being
Project.
Yeah.
This feels very much like he's like going, I can do anything, and so I'm going to just keep pushing how awesome I am. Mm-hmm. This whole movie is about how awesome this character is, and it is a little too much. It's a little too much of him going, Yeah. Not only am I funniest man alive, I'm also hot. Look how fucking hot I am.
Yeah.
At least he does not sing in this movie.
Oh,
but I know
God.
there was probably, he was sitting there going, just give me one scene where Maximilian the vampire gets up on a stage and sings, "My girl wants to party all the time."
My girl wants to drink blood all the time, drink blood all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
also, I mean, the biggest thing I saw in the trivia is he's wearing lifts in this movie to look taller.
oh, really?
Yeah, and you're going like, boy, that is indicative of the whole thing where he's like, I'm a badass, I'm sexy, I'm hilarious. Literally no woman can resist me in this movie, even though, of course, that's also part of the Dracula thing. But it's kind of one of the things just like, but Eddie, your character's using mind control to do, well, whatever, you know. But it is just like...
No. Moving on. Certainly not.
Anyway,
No,
let's talk about this poster, which is indicative of all of this. I think this brings... this brings even the poster is kind of unsure what route to take here a little bit.
It is, I mean, it's not a bad poster because again, this is a big budget.
This is a
studio
Paramount
picture.
movie. And I believe this is the end of his relationship with Paramount, because there was a period of time when he did have a blank check there, and it was like, whatever you want, Eddie. Eddie makes Paramount money. Our franchises are Star Trek and Eddie Murphy. And then, of course, there was the time when Star Trek 4, you know, where they tried to put Eddie Murphy in Star Trek.
Yeah.
Which would have been a disaster, I think.
Yeah. But it's a typical vampire movie poster with the female victim, in this case, the love interest, Angela Bassett.
Yeah.
She's in profile with her head tilted back, the neck exposed.
Yeah.
What really kills it for me is Eddie.
Yeah.
Because Eddie is not looking at her.
He's
the hand that you would expect to be on her throat, maybe, like caressing,
is on his chin.
Is on his chin. He's doing a glamour shot for us, not...
He's also doing this, like, coy, what am I gonna do?
I know. Literally, this is the pose that people, when they're getting their senior pictures taken, and they go, well, now you're doing the thoughtful pose with the hand, because supposedly that's attractive. So the hand is cradling your chin, and you're going, And you're like, great. Why don't you pay attention to the woman next to you instead of looking at us like,
It is sort of a thing where it's going like, what's wrong with you, Eddie? Do you not realize Angela Bassett is, like, right up on you? And he's just like...
And clearly good to go.
And it looks like he's looking in the mirror going, I don't care. I'm just caught up in myself here.
It does seem like, well, instead of it looking at us, there probably is a mirror on the other side.
Hell,
and he's looking at himself.
Yeah, man.
And he likes what he's seeing.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, you get shirtless shots of, and he is very fit at this time. But also,
I mean,
he's still,
in other words, he didn't need to sell it. It's all there.
Well,
if he had just played the character, he is handsome. He is charming.
He was never not. I mean, that's the thing is, I do think women thought he was sexy in Beverly Hills Cop, in 48 Hours. But he wasn't. He was sexy because he was funny and confident and the smartest guy in the room, not because he was like, check it out.
He's also clearly, I mean, not outrageously, but he's built himself up a little bit. He's clearly gone to the gym because, as you say, there are shirtless scenes.
Yeah.
And it is just a little bit, but not a little bit. It's completely him sitting here going, come on.
And I can
you didn't
feel
think
that.
I was this hot, did you?
I shouldn't feel. I'm watching this movie and thinking, what is Eddie Murphy thinking right now? Not what is the. I'm going. I can see your vanity on screen, man. It is.
This is Vanity.
Oh my God, it's bad. It's just this movie is bad. It is, and it bums me out to say that because, like I said, all the pieces of this on paper, it should be decent at least. Because, like, I'll defend some of his weaker movies even, man. Like, I kind of half-heartedly defend Harlem Nights. I don't think it's
You're
great.
the only person I know that has the 4K of Best Defense.
All right, that one I did, but that one I've never blamed him for exactly. That was still early.
No, I know.
But yeah, I just still have, but like, like I said, like I like The Distinguished Gentleman. I like Metro. You know, I mean, I'm not saying it's great, but I think it's fine. But like,
there are little scenes in almost all of them where you like go, oh, there's a little bit of what I wanted.
Well, because that's sort of the thing where I'm going like, once again, if you're selling it as a major studio movie with Eddie Murphy on the poster, it does feel like, and I think that's the push and pull we're talking about, but it sort of is like, maybe you should make an Eddie Murphy movie. I don't know. It just sort of feels like I'm not sure America was ready. If you're going to do serious horror movie, lean on the Wes Craven thing and then make it a surprise that it's Eddie Murphy. And I
also disappear into that character, become somebody else instead of I am all at once. It is still the Eddie that you love, but I'm also going to be tearing throats out. You're like, no.
But you look at the credits here, and it's story by Eddie Murphy, produced by Eddie Murphy, starring Eddie Murphy in 3 roles. But I do think it's very interesting, and this must be it must have been in his contract that it is still Wes Craven's Vampire in Brooklyn. That's got to be a Carpenter
that had to
thing.
be in his contract.
Because that's a Carpenter thing. When Carpenter directed a movie, it contractually had to be John Carpenter's whatever.
Yeah.
Or else he didn't do it. That had to be a same thing. And like I said, I do sort of think of those guys as being sort of, they're not even really rivals of each other, but they were the contemporaries of the horror directors coming up in the late 70s. So it is sort of a thing where, but it's sort of, it's like, once again, this whole thing, even this poster, I'm going, are you chasing the Wes Craven audience or are you chasing the Eddie Murphy audience? They're like, both equally. Ooh.
Well, I mean, I actually do like, again, the color scheme is all great because it's all sort of bronzed and yellow, and you get a skyline.
By the way,
and the moon.
Vampire in Brooklyn, shouldn't he have some fangs or something on this poster too?
Oh, and he doesn't have the nails that he has in
nails.
The actual movie.
How about when he gets the vampire eyes too? None of that is here. It's just Eddie. And by the way, I saw multiple quotes that Eddie blames the failure of this movie on his wig, and I'm going like, dude, the least of the problems here. He goes,
least the problem.
He goes,
and actually, I think he looks great as a vampire. I think the look is fine.
I agree, because one of the things this movie. Another missed opportunity that I like, and they do a little bit with it, is like, ooh, he's a Caribbean vampire. Therefore, he's got a little bit different flavor than other vampires. And here and there, they do stuff with it. But they should have leaned harder into that.
I love that his accent is essentially still the exact same one he did in Coming to America.
Well, it's Zamundian, yeah.
I'm like, wow, so
Caribbean,
African, it's just the same thing.
And he's got one accent.
He's got one accent. And he does it well.
I mean, I still, even as I'm going, this movie's bad, I'm still going, but I still do like it. Doesn't make me turn on Eddie fully, even though I'm going, what a fucking movie star vanity project disaster. And I'm going, I still love the guy though. It's why I'll still see everything. And I think we're in kind of an upswing in his career where he's kind of realized some stuff.
Well, I was about to say, when I was talking about he needed to, leave himself and disappear into a character, it took him many more years to realize, I think it's also an insecurity thing.
Yeah.
That he is a good enough actor to where he can do that. He's a very good actor. Very good. I'm glad that he realized that.
Very good.
Because when you get to things like, obviously Dreamgirls, which got him his Oscar nomination, you're like, do you see how seamlessly you did that? And do you see how you are not Eddie Murphy in that, and yet people are fucking falling over themselves because you're great in it? Yeah, you can do that. And then he's like, wait, I got to put a fat suit on and do Norbit. I'm like, stop, man.
Norbit is that movie's embarrassing.
And then, of course, obviously Bowfinger is another thing where he's like, I can still be funny, but not a typical Eddie Murphy funny.
Damn.
Because I'm so good,
Bowfinger.
I can even do a comedic performance that isn't like anything I've done before.
But his career from here on is basically like Bowfinger, great. Dr. Dolittle. Okay.
Yeah, it's all trade-offs. It's like
Adventures of Pluto Nash.
Oh, good. Oh, no.
Yeah. But then I think, Dolomite Is My Name. He's fucking great in that, man.
He is, and that didn't get nearly enough attention.
No, it was so great, man. And he's coming back. Now we're getting back into he's doing Prince Akeem again and Coming to America, and he's doing Axel Foley again. And sure, man.
Well, he's now doing the similar to the it's clearly the Sylvester Stallone model, which is like, I've embraced my age, but people still want to see me in my iconic roles. So let me just age those roles up.
And that works. Because I think also...
It does if it's good.
We're in a time where people want that nostalgia, too. So it's kind of a perfect time to be doing stuff like that. Anyway, let's talk about this movie, because good Lord.
Wait. Quick question.
Yeah.
Do we have to?
It was... I hadn't seen it like since it came out.
Same
and
here.
I've started it yesterday, and I still went in going, okay, I'm hoping that maybe I'm misremembering it, and this is some kind of hidden gem. Just because I just love the guy so much. I love him and Craven and Basset. I will say a huge problem, and it can't be the problem of the whole movie because tone stuff, but our hero lead is dull as fuck in this movie.
He's the guy where, I mean,
Alan Payne is this actor, and he's done stuff. He's certainly a working actor, but oh my god, okay, he's since 2006 he's been on a Tyler Perry 3-camera sitcom called House of Pain. Now that's not good. That's not good. That's actively bad.
He's ostensibly our Jonathan Harker, and
he's as boring as any Jonathan Harker we've ever seen.
And it does need to be stressed that his name is Justice.
Yeah. Good Lord. Who thought that was? How did that make it all the way through production? Come on.
Also, I also need to say that once again, Eddie's like, I can play anything. So when he plays his cartoonishly Italian white guy character, guess what that character's name is, John?
I believe it's Guido, is it not?
It turns out that character's name is Guido.
Yeah.
Oh, again, God. maybe a quick brush on that script real quick, maybe.
Well, how about you could eliminate that character entirely? He does nothing. It's only there. Same thing with the Preach. Both of the other Eddie Murphy characters, it's not Coming to America where it is about Eddie and Arsenio are going to play this whole neighborhood of people. Here it's like, we'll throw in some of this shit. Why not?
I just think that again, a lot of it is ego, but another model I think he followed is I'm going to be Peter Sellers.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that is amazing about Eddie and was hyped even from his Saturday Night Live days before the movies came along is he is so good. He can play so many different types of characters. And he did that famous film skit on Saturday Night Live where he had the white makeup on.
White Like Me? Is that what it was?
Yeah, White Like Me, where he walked around as a yuppie businessman
that's
in
hilarious.
whiteface, and is great.
It's one of the funniest things
the whole
ever.
Thing is like he can disappear and when he's in the makeup, he's a whole other guy. And now he's like going, every movie I do, I will play multiple characters, and some of them,
And it really, really works in Coming to America, and it really, really works in Nutty Professor. Here, it is a disaster. Namely because, dude, if you can't nail your lead performance, let's not spend energy on other characters. I don't know what you're doing. That's the thing about Coming to America is he's so lovable as the leading man. Yep. Then he can do the other stuff. But here, I have so many questions about our vampire that I'm going, I don't even have time to talk about Guido, who has no bearing on the plot whatsoever.
The rest of this podcast will just be me talking about Guido.
And it is like, but they even feel he's not disappearing into the characters. They're bad. It's bad work from Eddie Murphy. Both of those characters are like, boy, these weren't thought out at all, were they? This doesn't feel
bad Eddie. Bad Eddie.
Because every character he plays in Coming to America feels so fully realized, even if they are a cartoon. But it is the thing about, when you get sexual chocolate and you're like, and Marin was, when I just heard Eddie and Marin talking about Coming to America, he goes, yeah, we all know that guy. We've all seen that guy in show business. It's like, yes, here you have, he's basically doing Al Sharpton and then just generic, come on, kind of Italian guy. And you're like, that's
and
lazy,
actually,
man.
Again, I'll sit there going, as a mimic.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there going, that's a pretty good accent. It's
sure.
enough like Eddie that you're going, okay, great. But you're like, just like you said, but why? Why? This doesn't prove anything other than, Eddie, you're a good mimic. And you sound like a real cartoonish Italian,
but it's kind of like
thug.
we know you can do that, and we've seen you do it better. I think one of the best.
It doesn't add anything to the movie.
As I always do. I went back and read Roger Ebert's review from the time, and he talks about. There's a line in the movie where one of the guys goes, "Don't you pull that Blackula shit on me?" And he goes, "Yeah, don't say that, because all it made me go is Blackula was better than this."
And I agree.
We like Blackula. They're not like
Black
amazing
Hole is
movies.
not a great movie, but it is fun because it is what it is, and it's not
And
trying
also,
for anything else.
the opposite here, William Marshall makes those movies.
Oh, of course he does.
He is doing a real performance as Blackula. I get what makes that character tick.
He is adding a over the top Shakespearean gravitas to it, and you're like going, that's exactly what it needed. Thank you.
It's a dark day when I'm watching the Siskel and Ebert episode, and both of them are agreeing. Blackula was pretty good. Like, it's like, man, because those guys aren't quick to recommend Blackula in any other circumstance. But in this case, they're going like, now that you say that, I did kind of like Blackula, Roger. They were so
Comparatively, it is so much better than this.
I like Siskel in the episode he goes, Eddie, the thing I've been saying for years is you need to work with a really good director and a really good leading lady. And he goes, you've done that in this, and it still stinks, so I don't know how to help you anymore.
Yeah, I don't know how to help
I think he did say, he goes, maybe don't hire your brother to write the script. I don't know. I do think that, not that Charlie Murphy's bad, but it is kind of like, Charlie Murphy is here to be
R.I.P. by the way.
R.I.P. man, so funny. But it is a thing where it is kind of like, I do feel like it's like, well, I'm the Murphy representative in the room here, and this is what Eddie wants.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a thing where it's like, well, I don't have the time to write it myself. So Charlie, can you go make sure we're getting enough Eddie in here? And you're like, don't.
As if the thing is, you need more of it. Jeez.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, this movie starts off to a bad start when we're getting these shots in New York City, and Eddie is going, the thing in the Caribbean with the vamp. I'm like, oh no. I'm always like, immediately everything tenses up when I have voiceover backstory at the start of a movie, because that always screams of a studio going, yeah, we need to fill people in.
Yep. And especially when even this backstory seems literally like 8th grade Eddie came up with it. It is so terrible. Basically, the backstory is this. Nosferatu is not it's not the curse that is carried from biting and blood. It is an entire race. Yeah. And the Nosferatu, thousands of years ago, decided to split off, and some went to Transylvania, and then some, the smarter ones, he said, went down to Africa. Then after a while, they went to the Bermuda Triangle, and that cracked me up too, because that is literally so stupid that they would sit there going, oh, get it? The Bermuda Triangle, as if that was a thing known to anybody pre people coming up with the dumb thing in the 70s. Yeah. So basically, and we stayed there on this mystical island in the Bermuda Triangle, feasting off the sailors that would get lost there. And if that was the case, they would have gone hungry, because yes, a lot of ships have disappeared in there, but we're talking about centuries. Yeah. Not nearly enough to feed an entire populace.
Just
but that does explain. He goes, but now they're all gone.
Yeah.
And I'm the only one left. Yeah. So now I have to find a half vampire.
Oh my god, this is so sweaty, man.
It is so sweaty.
It's just going like, and throughout the movie you're getting that, and then you get to like, well, your father was a vampire and stuff like. I'm just going like, oh, God, I don't. Why?
I knew your father. Are you not excited that I knew the man you never knew?
I mean, I am.
He was a vampire, and a wonderful vampire.
I mean, the idea of vampires being a race instead of a curse, that's fine. I mean, once you could do something interesting with that.
Yeah,
that's fine. Sure. That's not a bad setup. They just do nothing with it. And when you said about come up with the 8th grade, this movie probably was Eddie and his brothers going, we like vampire movies. Let's come up with our own vampire movie when they were kids. And they probably batted this idea around for years.
They have old, I swear to God, they have to have spiral notebooks full of this nonsense.
Because I mean, here's the other thing, too. Eddie can be sexy, cool, badass leading man. You know that dude.
Okay, John. Okay, calm down.
I'm just saying.
You all right?
I'm just saying. You know that guy's a fucking nerd.
He is.
He's a huge nerd. And the other thing I always go back to is like, and I think the lifts and stuff like that, and the muscles are like, he's also a little guy, and I think that always has bothered him.
Yep,
that's very clear. Even though,
did you stop psychoanalyzing Eddie?
This movie is the psychoanalysis of Eddie Murphy.
It really
though.
is.
You can't
He's
watch
like,
this
oh,
and not.
I am all powerful and so hot. Women literally can't. They fall
Even
over
though
when I'm near.
But it's like I want to shake him at the time and go, "Don't you realize you've already become an action hero through just being you? We love you because you're you."
But now he gets to have like a kick-ass outfit and float through the air.
And
I
agree. He looks good when he's doing that. I like the outfit. I like the scene when he ascends into the sky, and you're like, well, because Wes Craven's good at visuals.
And he flaps his trench coat like wings,
Yeah.
which is a little goofy, but also kind of great.
It kind of works, and especially if the whole movie was more comedic in general, then I think that would really work.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, make him more the fish out of water. It's interesting how suddenly comfortable he gets in New York.
Well, I'm assuming, though luckily we don't get more backstory anymore, and I'd be stop.
This thing is already tipping the scales at an hour 40, you know?
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. But I will say that it's implied. I mean, he isn't reawakened like a lot of vampire stories. I think he's literally been sitting around in the Caribbean, probably watching TV. He knows English. He knows exactly where he's headed. He's going to Brooklyn. That's where she is.
I can't wait to find out what happens on NYPD Blue.
Yeah. So I don't think he's sitting there going, "What is this metal cart without a horse?" But it's not that.
Well, no, he's not. He's not quite that. But I think it's more a cultural thing, right? I mean, it is because you have the thing of him going, I've never been shot, and I actually thought that scene. I'm going, oh, I kind of want to watch a whole movie that's like this.
Yeah,
and him or him continuing to battle gangsters or something like that. I don't know.
Well, very Innocent Blood, and in fact, they steal that one gag from Innocent Blood where he goes, "Do you like Italian?" And you're like, "Oh,
oh God."
He's going to kill some mobsters, and that he just
no.
He
goes, I've already had Italian, and he picks a part of a guy's like kidney out of his mouth.
Yeah.
You also get, and I did write it down, he goes, "I would like to have you for dinner."
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, all right, that's fine. Yeah. And that was in the trailer. Believe me, that was in the trailer, because the trailer is going like, we're going to put every joke. There's a lot of John Witherspoon reactions in here in the trailer going like, oh, whoa, you know. I mean, literally, I think Ebert brought it up in his review. He goes, John Witherspoon is literally doing some of the same dialogue he does in Boomerang.
Oh, probably.
Because he's doing
like, that works. Do that again.
When he does the same thing, and I do remember this in Boomerang, and Ebert brought this up when he does he's going to town on her. Bang, 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 bang. Like, that is a joke in Boomerang, a movie also about Eddie being a super sexy ladies' man. Only, I like that movie.
Only, upon reflection, I'm all right with it.
Well, because that was like a rom-com, right? And it is about a player who falls in love with somebody.
Yes, and actually the whole point is that it's another one of those stories where he starts out that way,
yes,
and then has to be humbled, and prove that he's a real human being. And this never goes that route because he's an irredeemable vampire guy right up to the end.
But also, and that's the weird thing where they don't play him enough as a villain, so you are like, am I supposed to think he's cool? I'm supposed to think he's cool, but also scary.
To the blandest Detective Justice, who it actually surprised me, 25 minutes in, that he was supposed to actually be a romantic rival, because they play him and Angela Bassett's character as partners, like police partners that are somewhat they're platonic. And then, so you get confused why she's so jealous so she thinks that Justice is banging her roommate. Yeah. And she's like, how could you?
None of that stuff works at all because it doesn't make any sense. I will say, I did have a thought while watching this of who could have, it wouldn't have saved
John, I've told you before not to have thoughts.
I know. Well, especially if I'm watching Vampire in Brooklyn. Our good friend, he was on the show last week, Jerry Chrisman, called me yesterday and he goes, what are you doing? I'm going, I just had to pause Vampire in Brooklyn. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry to interrupt. And I'm going like, no, take your time, Jerry. But
how's the family? What's going on? Tell me everything.
Feel free to tell me everything going on in your life. I am in no hurry to get back to this. But I was thinking who would be better in this part, or at least have more strength. It would still not work, but is one of the actors from Coming to America, and that's Eric LaSalle. I think would have been.
Oh, sure, of
he would have
course.
been more believable as the cop. He would have had a stronger presence. I'm saying not that it would save the movie, but it would just given the character a little bit more muscle on him, a little bit more strength.
This guy, I mean, in pretty much all respects, is bland. He's handsome, but in a bland way.
You kind of wonder if some of that was on purpose for Eddie to go, oh, they're not going to even give a shit about that guy. Like, I do wonder if there's a thing where it's like, that guy's not going to challenge me. Everybody's still going to be looking at Eddie. Yeah. Once again, continuing to psychoanalyze this man. Because this whole movie is this is Eddie's midlife crisis on film. It
kind of is.
It
kind of is. He's not. He's probably 35 here, though. So it's
I don't think but I mean, it's definitely like a mid-career crisis. I don't know, or something like that.
Sure, go with that.
Yeah, he's 34 when this comes out. Yeah.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. I was pretty good on that.
Well, I mean, it is a thing too where you cannot forget that he was fucking 19 when he comes on SNL, right? Like
I know.
He's like 21 in 48 hours. It's insane.
Unbelievable.
That guy was just. I mean, you talk about just natural talent. So yeah, we do have the boat crash. That is sort of our Demeter thing, and this is where you have John Witherspoon and Kadeem Hardison, who are these guys who work at the boat dock, I guess, or the harbor.
I guess. Oh, I mean, Kadeem doesn't, but he's visiting his uncle, who, and
they're watching Family Feud.
They're watching Family Feud, and this is all comedy beats. So the movie is opening with a pretty ominous ship coming into shore thing. But the only audio we're having is young guy and his uncle watching Family Feud, joking and
probably
talking about
just riffing. This feels like they're like, guys, we're just gonna put on Family Feud. You do your thing. And by the way, this is Ray Combs era Family Feud. Weird.
Yes.
Weird.
Yeah, it's okay. You're gonna be all right. We're gonna get you through this.
I hate Ray Combs era Family Feud.
So they are riffing, and it's easy. It's easy. Young guy versus old guy, and the young guy, Kadeem Hardison, his character is a bookie or a numbers runner for a bookie. And so this is basically they're watching, but also him saying, who do you like in this game? And the uncle's going to bet on the Knicks. And he's like, blah, blah, blah. The ship crashes into the dock and crashes into the building that they're in, which is a building on the dock. But I never really understood, what the connection with the uncle was.
Well, I don't think we ever see him go to the docks again.
No, apparently he's a landlord of a building later.
It's almost like writing this movie. They just go, he works at the docks, and they're like, you know what? It'd be better if he's the landlord of the building, and
so
but we won't go back.
The thing crashes through the building, and the young guy's like, dude, does that happen often? No, it doesn't. He's like, I'm getting out of here. And the uncle's like, what are you doing? And then Witherspoon is on the boat with a flashlight. And the thing I kept thinking is, your phone probably still works. Maybe you should call the lifeguard or the police or whatever.
Nothing. No,
but he takes the flashlight. He's like, ahoy there. And then he finds everybody on the ship is dead.
I did laugh at John Witherspoon going, ahoy there. Ahoy, motherfuckers.
Yes.
Funny. Funny.
Yeah.
John Witherspoon was funny. Like, he just didn't have to do anything. And then, of course, everybody's dead on the boat because we're doing the Dracula thing.
You know how hard he had to work at being funny? Not very hard, because it just, like, pretty much everything he delivers lands because he's a funny man.
And I think that was probably, a thing, Eddie having worked with him a few times, was smart to go like, well, he'll come in and deliver. And he does, to the point where he's like the highlight of the film.
Sadly, it is the case where you're just like going, anytime he's on, I know what movie I'm getting, and it's the one I'm more entertained by.
Absolutely. Where you're just going like, this tone is working, man. Yeah. Oh man, I just think about, like, you could have done bits where Eddie's trying to not seem like a vampire or something, and that could have been fun. I'm just going like, there's just so much missed opportunity for anything.
Yeah, essentially he finds everyone on there is dead, and then he sees movement, and there's the wolf that we're all expecting if you have ever read or watched a Dracula film. Yeah. So the wolf leaps overboard, actually leaps on him, and then off the ship, and he's like, God damn it. And he watches as the wolf's shadow transforms into a man,
Yeah. And
That's pretty good shadow transformation. I
well,
like. Oh, that was
I
pretty
mean,
good.
the movie's got money behind it. This is a major studio.
Sure.
There's no problem there. I don't think there's any technical things I really want to get on it about.
No, and so that's working, and then I don't remember what happens next, other than the cops show up, and he's like going, and they're going, so you saw a wolf? He goes, yeah, I saw a wolf, and they're like, really? Are you sure it wasn't like that? And they point at a dog.
Well,
He goes, I know what a dog looks like.
Oh, I do like.
This is cool.
I like that line too. He goes, "You ever see the Wolf Man?" They're like, "Yeah." This is like that times 11.
Yeah, this is like that times 11.
Pretty good. Okay. Pretty good. It's just, at a certain point, John Witherspoon is just injecting energy into the movie,
and you're like,
and
thank
like,
you.
Hey, that's something.
Still early days.
Yeah,
we're not. We're not sure what movie this is just yet.
No, because Kadeem Hardison's character is run back into the city, and he's hiding in a building where Eddie will crash through the window here.
Can you explain something to me about this, by the way?
Yeah.
They do very little to explain why Maximilian tracked down Kadeem Hardison.
Yeah.
Kadeem Hardison left that thing on the docks before Maximilian's off the ship. How does he even know who he is?
Yeah, because
much less this will be my assistant.
He has this line where he says, he's like, I think you are a greedy, evil, corrupt person or something. That he goes, no, that's not me. That's my uncle. And he goes, oh, too bad. That's what I liked about you. And I'm going, when did he come up with that?
and also, how does he even know he exists? Because he didn't meet him.
The thing I like about the Kadeem Hardison thing, though, is the turn on the Caribbean thing, where this is almost kind of a voodoo, zombie kind of thing, right? That he turns him into. That I thought, okay, so we're gonna do the Renfield, the familiar thing, but instead it's these literally rotting as a corpse. That's kind of interesting. And he calls him a ghoul. He goes, "You're going to be my ghoul."
This is an odd thing where, he's going to be his Renfield.
Yeah.
But here, this feels like we know that it was going to be aimed at Landis. It feels like, I'm going to make him sort of like the guy from American Werewolf, where every time you see him, he's decaying more. And you're like, well, why? What would that benefit a vampire where you have an assistant who basically turns into a corpse and you've got him for a couple of weeks because he's going to be nothing in like a couple of weeks?
There could be something with it if you wanted to flesh it out more and dig into it a little bit more.
Well, they don't. Basically,
they don't.
all
That's
it is
the problem. I'm saying, yeah.
He's like, okay, you're going to be my ghoul, and you will do my bidding during the day, and you will protect my coffin and all this nonsense. He's like, okay. And then all it is he bites his finger and drips his blood into Kadeem Hardison's mouth. And he's like, that did it. Now you're my ghoul. And he goes, wow, this is great. He goes, maybe if you're a really good ghoul, you might be turned into a vampire like me, and it'll be awesome. And again, we're sitting there as the movie audience going, are there rules to this? Because then we get to the end too, and you're like, how does this fucking work?
Yeah.
Trying to explain how this happens at the end. You're like, what?
Man, I do not like that there's an entire section on Wikipedia about this movie, about the critical reassessment and how it's become a cult classic, because it does not deserve that kind of hype. Given the fact that Vampire in Brooklyn is an entry in the overexposed horror genre, an uneasy mix of humor and horror, it is amazing it's successful, but the chemistry between Basset and Murphy is strong? I don't think it is.
Well, no, but they're both good actors,
yeah.
And there's at least in a couple of the seduction-y scenes, I mean, the chemistry is at least compelling enough because you've got two very attractive people acting like they're hot for each other. But no, in all the other scenes when he's trying to be suave and I liked it when she shut him down because that felt very Angela Bassett.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Angela Bassett, and we're talking about like that crime scene stuff like that. You instantly buy her as this hard-nosed NYPD cop. Like,
yes,
unquestionably, no question of that legitimacy. The problem is every time they break her out of that, you're like, this is a weak and bad use of her.
Weirdly, as an actor, her one weakness is that whenever she is forced to play weak, she doesn't do it well because there's an inherent strength in Angela Bassett. So the scenes in this when she's thinks she's losing her mind or she's sad, she's outside painting on the roof, and you're like going, yeah, I'm not buying this. The scenes where she's like, I think I'm losing my mind because I have these dreams, and you're like going, yeah, but you're Angela Bassett. You should just kick those dreams in the ass.
Yeah, that's sort of, and that whole thing is so undercooked and like what she's dreaming the future and she's painting it. It feels like, dude, get that shit out of here, man. That just doesn't feel like that. That's just
I like the idea of you talking back to TV. Get this shit out of here.
Well, every time it came up, I'm like, man, this feels like something out of another movie. You can't just like drop this into this vampire movie.
Well, it's another thing of the we were meant to be together. We are fated, which, that is now default for vampire films almost. I'm like, wouldn't it be great if it's someone that they just met and not
I did think
we were destined to be together?
Couldn't this just have been vampire comes to New York, falls in love with Angela Bassett, and tries to pursue her? Like that doesn't. It doesn't have to be that he came here to find her, and you could even still do.
They have to continue the Nosferatu line. Yeah. Don't you understand?
But also,
he's the last one.
And that's not a bad idea either, but it's once again, it goes back into pick a lane.
Yep.
I have to continue the that could even still have been part of it, but it didn't mean that it had to be destined to be with her. It could still be I've come to all right, I'm now just pitching Coming to America. Once again, he's come to New York to find his vampire queen. And actually,
where do you find them? Queens.
And that is something Ebert also brings up in review. He goes, structurally, this is the same movie as Coming to America.
Yep.
And he goes, that's lazy. And it is lazy. And it's not as good. Once again, stop invoking better things. I do think I did find a quote. I was looking to see if Wes Craven had commented on this movie in the years after. And I
bet it would be brief comment.
He talks about it a little bit. So he goes, this was him several years ago because obviously we sadly lost Mr. Craven. But he was on Mick Garris's podcast. I don't know if you ever listened to that.
I never did.
It's good. He just talks to horror filmmakers.
There you go.
But when asked about this movie, the first sentence Craven says is, "Yeah, that was kind of a screwed up thing." He goes, I wanted to work with a big star. I suppose it could have been better if it was a horror movie, but it wasn't. Eddie didn't want to be funny. He wanted to be serious, and he was very difficult to work with. He wanted to play it totally straight, so I couldn't get the humor into it I wanted. And he says, but he was still impressed with.
Wouldn't have written the preacher scene into it. That's not him. That had to have been an Eddie thing.
That had to be an Eddie thing. I think maybe Wes Craven was going, can we work the humor into the other stuff so it doesn't feel? That's my guess. Is Wes Craven was trying to just make the whole thing make sense.
Yeah,
that would be my guess, where it's like, I want to play the vampires. Well, and I think it's interesting that there's an Eddie quote here that speaks to kind of what you're talking about. Let's see, where was that here? Eddie says, okay.
All research, man.
There you go. Eddie says, I've always wanted to do something where I was the villain in the movie. I love horror pictures, big fan of Wes Craven. This movie started out as something small. This was my movie. My company was going to produce it, and the screenplay came together so well that I thought it'd be a fun role to play. I don't know what you were reading, man, but here he goes. But I got to do something kind of scary, but I had the safety net because the vampire can turn into other people. I get to be funny when I'm the preacher. I get to be funny when I'm the Italian guy, and the vampire is pretty straight, but I've got all this funny stuff happening around me. And there it is. That's it exactly, though. As soon as he said, I've got the safety net. So it's like, I want to do a straight bad guy vampire in a horror movie, but also I don't want to go too far away, so make me the fat preacher and the weird Italian guy too.
The idea that the vampire can turn into other people is so... I obviously there's no set rules when you're doing your vampire thing.
Well, and they already break the mythos, right, with this whole idea of the Nosferatu in this.
And there's like this one, which is very ADR, by the way. The one line that explains it is not visualized.
No.
We hear it as voiceover, where he's talking to Kadeem Hardison and says, it takes a very old and experienced and powerful vampire to turn into shapes that are human and also to absorb their memories.
When you say ADR, you're exactly right, because that line is said over the shot of a building. There's no one even in the shot. It's panning down off of a building
their
to
vehicle
them.
is vehicle is in front of the building.
Yeah.
So I guess we can assume that he's explaining this.
But that always reads, I love the ADR thing where like you have just a car driving and they're going, so wait a minute, we're going to this place for this? Yes, that's exactly it. I did some research. Like that is in so many movies where you just
there is ADR at the end of this movie that is clearly not Witherspoon, but it's someone doing a Witherspoon impression saying, but it's just the same lines. I just assumed that the live audio wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
And that maybe they weren't able to get John Witherspoon back. So literally it's someone doing it's when he's opening up the limousine. He's like going, oh, this is nice. It's got, and it's blah, blah, blah. And he opens up the door so Kadeem Hardison gets in. I'm like, who is saying that? I mean, Witherspoon's mouth is making those words, but that is not his voice.
No.
That reminds me of the story of Donald Glover doing some of the werewolf bar mitzvah stuff for Tracy Morgan.
Yeah.
Because he was so good at doing a Tracy Morgan impression,
He was.
And
there's even that
Tracy Morgan.
There's even that episode of 30 Rock where he plays young Tracy Jordan in a flashback scene, which was very funny. It's great. Yeah, his Tracy.
Oh, by
Morgan.
the way, it is November 1st. No, 2nd.
Yeah,
I forgot to wish you a happy werewolf bar mitzvah. Like a couple of days ago.
Spooky, scary. Boys becoming men, men becoming wolves.
It's so great.
It's one of the funniest things ever. Happy werewolf bar mitzvah, everybody.
That's from us to you.
Yeah, that show's giving me a lot of stuff because I can also celebrate Leap Day Larry on Leap Day. So anyway, there's a lot. There's also just messy structural stuff in this movie. Like he goes into the city to get Kadeem Hardison, turns him into his ghoul, but then they have to go back to the ship to get his coffin. And you're just kind of like, man, that is not how a story progresses, you guys.
Also, he has the ghoul to move all this stuff, and I'm sitting there going, does the ghoul have superhuman strength? Well, and actually, yes, he does.
I was going to say, he does have some powers, but what powers they are inconsistent, because he can do some
Just depends on the scene.
Depends on it really is. But we get this scene where they go, man, we can't go back in there. The cops are there. And he's like, I'll take care of that. And then with his mind, he blows up a dog? What was that? And that did actually look like shit. I will say, from a practical standpoint, that was clearly a stuffed dog being launched into the air.
I thought the exploding part of the dog, looked absolute shit. Yeah. I did think that the arc of whatever was the thing that was on fire, I was like, that looks really nice.
Yeah.
So they went from that looks like crap to, cool. I like the way that looked.
But what is that power? Yeah,
who knows?
He does
I
some
thought
other
he was
weird
just
stuff,
going to do the vampire thing.
Yeah.
Of just like talk to an animal to calm it down. Like, I am your master.
Because he does that later with the cobra.
Yeah. But in this case, he literally turns it into a rocket. The dog explodes, launches into the air, and lands in the
all the cops look over there.
The cops are like, they're a little weirded out, but they're just like,
But apparently it's enough of a distraction that Eddie can get onto the boat now, where Angela Bassett just happens to be on the boat at the time that Eddie gets on the boat, and she falls through part of the boat into the lower part of the boat where Eddie's coffin is, so he can do a see me kind of thing.
And the thing I think is so fucking ridiculous is, I mean, he was shipped there in his coffin.
Yeah.
But when she breaks through, the hold of the ship now looks like a crypt. In other words, there's a lit candelabra down there. And I'm like, no.
It's actually kind of one of the problems of the budget of the movie, right? It's like, all right, now we're over designing shit that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
But it is just going, if we can build a crypt set, let's do it, whether it makes sense or not. We got the money.
The hold of the boat.
Yeah.
But that's how he sees her, and he's like, wow, I didn't really have to look. There she is. He's like telling Kadeem Hardison, that's her. She's the one. That worked out.
So this is 1995, and I was curious about this. $20 million budget on this thing. For 1995, that's not nothing.
No, that's not nothing. Especially for a horror comedy. That's actually
worldwide gross 19.7. Didn't even quite get back to budget.
Wow,
Nine-
worldwide? That's surprising because I thought that even shitty Eddie Murphy would sell really well overseas.
Gross
Man.
worldwide 19.7.
People did not want to see sexy vampire Eddie.
I think you could say this movie was like completely denied, or whatever, like completely like nope.
This was a nope.
The world just absolutely refused this movie. No, we don't want this shit in art. No.
Wow.
Get that out of here. Get that out of here.
Hey, you with Vampire in Brooklyn.
Get out of here.
here.
Get out of here, man. Now, luckily, Wes Craven's next movie is Scream, which turns into a phenomenon, of course. So he bounced back just fine.
Sorry, what was that? What was that movie called?
It was called Scream.
No, I mean maybe if you're a French, I've never really heard of it.
There's like 5 of them. That's right. They're making a.
Did they ever get it right?
Yeah, they keep trying, man. They keep
trying.
Yeah, it doesn't work. And I really do like that franchise a lot, actually. But
why weren't they called? I'm sorry, but it is one of those obvious things where you're like, please, why wasn't it Scream? And then the sequel was like Scream Again, and then Scream and Scream Again. I mean, why didn't they do that instead of Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4?
Well, it's interesting because then it goes Scream 1 through 4, and then the 5th one is once again just called Scream.
Like Halloween.
Well, that was totally the thing there. Actually, it's really good, though. The newest one I really liked a lot.
Well, I still haven't seen it. I will.
Really?
I mean, I'm not avoiding it. I just haven't seen it.
It's real. I thought it was really good.
Well, I'll check it out.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, we get this whole scene, which is stupid. I did see from the thing, Angela Bassett hated any scene in the coffin. Apparently, she's very claustrophobic. So.
Oh, wow.
That's something else I kept thinking about. As I'm going like, oh, every time that woman's in that coffin, she's just like, can we shoot this already?
You know who else is claustrophobic? Storm. Again, the missed opportunities.
Man, you're right.
That's built into her character.
It totally is. It totally is. All right. So let's see here. Can we talk about the fact that Skinner plays a gangster in this movie?
We can. I was waiting, and there it is, and thank you.
Yep. FBI Deputy Director Walter Skinner.
Apparently, in his youth. No, this was
X-Files is on at this point.
Yeah, and Skinner would have already been with the FBI at this point, so this isn't like a side or early days of Skinner.
By the way, Mitch Pileggi uncredited in this movie.
Really?
Yeah, uncredited. Although IMDb lists him as Tony the Hitman.
This is dumb. I mean, they're after Kadeem Hardison because he owes them money. And I mean, we're actually backtracking because this is when
I realized
Maximilian saves Kadeem Hardison's life because they're like, you owe our boss money. And he calls the younger one, Tony, goes, you dummy. Don't you know I'm Anthony? He's Tony. See, that's really funny writing because if they're Italians, they're all going to be named Tony of some degree or Guido. And
it's Tony or Guido.
Mitch Pileggi is actually Tony.
I will say just a small anecdote from a friend of the show, Mike Gorgoni. His father did push hard for his name to be Anthony, so there could have been a scenario that he was Tony Gorgoni.
Wow.
And we talk about he'd be a much different person, and we also talk about he would be somebody who would die in the first act of a Scorsese movie.
Absolutely.
You hear what they did to Tony Gorgoni?
The Gorgone? What'd they do to the Gorgone?
Yeah. Oh, they got him, man. They blew up Tony Gorgoni. But yeah, it's a real. It was like one of those things where I'm like, oh, what a waste of Mitch Pileggi, who's a really good character actor, and also was the star of Wes Craven's Shocker, which I think is why he's here.
Yeah, that would make sense.
There's a few Craven people that pop up in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, just the ones where it's like Eddie's like, oh, I don't care. Do you like somebody? Go ahead, put him in.
Yeah. I think there's a couple people like that where you go like, oh, that guy's been in a few. We get W. Earl Brown at one point in this movie.
Yeah, we do.
I mean, there's some good, like we're saying, everybody in this. This is a top tier movie.
They also waste people. Like Joanna Cassidy is in this. Oh my God. And you're like, she's there for 5 minutes.
Why
and
even? You're like, why get Joanna Cassidy? What a complete waste.
What a complete waste. And also, I'm not sure she knew what movie she was in.
No.
Because I think they said it's an Eddie Murphy joint. So she came in she's doing and I know Joanna Cassidy's capable of comedy and drama both, but she comes in she's like the stereotypical, I'm a tough police captain. I'm the captain.
And she's
doing
doing like a New York kind of like, you guys
Yeah,
got to
she's
take
a
it
little
down
over the top.
to
It's
the
like,
5th
hey,
precinct.
Justice, let me talk to you.
Yeah.
Is your partner Rita? Is
Yeah.
she okay in the head?
Yeah.
Is she okay? Because
I don't think she's ever in the movie with Eddie
mentioning
too.
how fragile Rita is,
Which is
Angela Bassett's character.
They don't
and
sell
they're
me
like,
on it.
They never explain that. They're just like, she's a good detective who has bad nightmares, and they're all like, is she okay?
Yeah.
Is she fucking loony bins or what?
She been painting the future again? That's crazy, dog.
She's crazy.
Uh-oh.
Why does she have a full-grown nymphomaniac roommate for one scene?
Oh my!
Where did that come from?
You want to talk about somebody I feel really bad for? Is this actress Simbi Kali, who plays a character who's literally in the credits credited as Nikki, Rita's roommate.
Yeah, and she. I mean, she's mainly done a lot of TV stuff, but she's also a familiar face from this period.
Definitely.
She's fine. But what, again, as far as a role for somebody, what a thankless role, because it's so terribly written. Her whole purpose is to, anytime there's a male on screen, come on to them.
Yeah.
I know that she's the Lucy in the story.
Did you catch that?
I did catch that.
Yeah, because in the IMDb trivia they talk about it's basically just the story of Dracula with the following characters slotted in for, and they list her as Lucy. I'm going, I get that structurally she is, but she is not as well developed as any version of Lucy we've seen.
Not even in the novel. Again, we don't even know why she and Rita are friends. And then the whole thing is
I also thought it was
Rita,
weird
you like
that
Justice? I want to fuck Justice. Who's this guy that showed up? I want to fuck that guy. I mean,
and then she's gonna fuck
on?
that guy, but he's making it seem like Justice is fucking her, so that Rita will get upset
and not love Justice anymore. She doesn't love Justice. I get that now.
But I also thought it was kind of weird that this like top tier homicide detective goes home to her roommate. I mean, I know New York is expensive, but like, no one on Law and Order has a roommate.
And there's no, we're not saying anything against people in their 30s having roommates, but it just does seem weird.
Yeah.
Unless you establish something like they are friends since childhood or college, and she's her rock.
Make her sister, and I have no questions anymore.
Or make her sister. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. But this character, boy, you talk about a character who will just be killed off, and then way later in the movie is just like, we found her fucking dead, man. Ugh.
Yep.
Ugh. Too bad. Anyway, on with the movie. It doesn't really matter. None of this really matters. None of the murders have any weight.
They really don't, even when they try to. There's a pretty cool shot scene when we find out what happened to Vicky, as in it's pretty graphically nifty, but it doesn't land because we never got to know her, and she was just this caricature. Well, she was just the nympho roommate.
That's the thing where you talk about the script's not working, because Craven is doing his thing, man. He can do this in his sleep. He knows how to deliver scares. So it is like, ooh, that's creepy. Ooh, that's a good shot, but you're just going but he has the script he has, and it's not very good, so you just don't give a shit.
No, you don't.
That's kind of my whole review of this movie is, it's bad, but mainly my main thing is I just don't give a shit, man.
No, that's the problem. Again, we are entertained here and there, usually by the comedic actors trying really hard.
Yeah.
We're occasionally surprised at when they're trying to make it gory or horrific, and you go, wow, that's Eddie Murphy holding a human heart. All right.
So that's what that would look like. I always wondered.
Yeah.
I always wondered why Axel Foley never ripped anyone's heart out in those movies.
Because he was too busy doing the neutron dance.
You and the neutron dance.
It just cracks me up. I'm sorry.
Man, I'm gonna get sued by Paramount in a second here. So
yeah, I can already wait. Oh, they're calling.
Harold Faltermeyer's on the phone. Composer of XLF. But yeah, so God, yeah. Anyway, we get a bit where Kadeem Hardison is polishing Eddie's limo and his hand comes off.
Yep.
And that's
Yeah,
another thing where I thought about
Ghoul,
this would be another bad thing as a familiar. Boy, you're drawing a lot of attention to this corpse that's falling apart when you have him out doing stuff.
I know the thing is, he's like, you will be my hands during the day. You will do what I need, my bidding. And you're sitting there going, you mean the completely obvious walking corpse?
Yeah.
How is that going to help anybody? Cops would stop you and send you to the hospital or something because you are clearly a walking dead person.
Sir, your hand clearly just fell off. So
the funny thing is that Kadeem Hardison, the whole point of this is that he gets to roll with everything that happens because it doesn't really hurt him.
Yeah.
But he's like going, oh man. It's like, damn, you didn't. Now I don't have an ear.
Once
now
again,
I lost
man,
a hand.
now
my eye popped out.
Kadeem Hardison is just here, man. He's like, I'm in.
Working so hard.
And always, I mean, the guy's always been a solid character actor. I used to watch A Different World back in the day, and he was on that, of course.
Well, I was happy to see him. I was just happy to see him because it's like, oh, right, you are, you're good. Because I haven't seen him in so long, and I'm like,
he's on Black Monday is where he currently is. The
well,
Showtime series.
I saw season 1. Did I miss him?
No, he's in there because he's married to.
Oh, you're right, and he's great.
To,
you're right.
Regina
right.
Hall. I almost said Regina King, and I should
don't do that. Don't do that.
That happens to them a lot, apparently.
Just there are too many Reginas in the world.
Well, there's two.
Too many Reginas.
Yeah, and I both Reginas are great at their own thing. So
it's very true.
Yeah, you get that, and I do kind of like the bit later where he's like, "What is that?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I got this mannequin hand. He didn't need it," and I'm going, "Dude, you are crushing it in this movie, man."
And he's doing it. Also, the thing is, he goes, "I got this mannequin hand from the store, and it was a white man tennis display."
Yeah,
he does this like pose like he's doing a tennis racket with a mannequin hand. I'm like, again, if this movie just said we're a comedy, this is a good bit, and I'm sure it would have been surrounded by other good bits.
Because I'll tell you, the way you could have done this is have him be the same thing, but have Eddie being like, "Ugh, God,
sure,
this is what I'm stuck with." Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and so he's like going, "I think you'll be a very good ghoul."
I mean, it is true when Eddie's talking about I'm playing it straight and there's funny stuff around me. It's like, yeah, and you're not even acknowledging or playing with the funny stuff. You could even still be a legit vampire, but be a straight man in a comedy scene. Instead, it almost seems like you're unaware that this stuff is silly.
Yep.
It's just like, yeah, great, you have a mannequin hand now.
I
Who
think
cares?
you're almost saying that there's a problem with the interior logic and tone of this film. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's what I'm coming around to. I'm starting to realize the trouble here. Now that you mention it, this movie might not work. That is the biggest review I do have, is like, this just doesn't work. It flat out just doesn't work. Anyway.
No.
All right, I'm just kind of skipping through here because it doesn't really matter.
No, it really doesn't. There's really the plot is just he keeps trying to manufacture ways to enter her life.
Yeah, and
including he shows up at that club.
Well, let's get to that club scene because that's where we meet our Van Helsing, and that's where I wanted to go next. So yeah, we're going to that club, and this is Dr. Zico is this character's name.
Yeah.
Huge bummer because what they imply about this character. Oh, also. A Wes Craven guy. This guy was in Serpent and the Rainbow.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
I mean, that movie doesn't quite work, but I still like it a lot.
Better movie, though, than this. I mean, it works a lot better than this. And you got Pullman doing a lot for you there.
Yes.
But, yeah, so he shows up, and we get this whole backstory about how, yes, I was down in the Caribbean, and my wife fell under the spell of one of these things, and I lost her, and I have this scar on my face from where I fought the vampires. I'm going like, oh, I like this guy.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
the problem is that this is a total tease because he's just an exposition machine and has almost nothing to do in this movie.
And just straight up embarrassingly fails to kill Eddie Murphy later. And Eddie Murphy even mocks him for it. It's
I know.
Brutal,
I know.
Man. Brutal.
Though I do kind of like a mocking vampire.
I do
kinda
too, but
like
it's the
that
only
scene,
time
even
he's
though
like
it does
that.
make Dr. Zico look like an idiot.
There should have been that same scene with somebody else.
Maybe so. Yes. But the thing that I do want to address this. I know that I'm backing up slightly, but I was trying to think like, how does she know to go there? Oh, here's how.
Yeah.
Okay. This is one of the stupidest written things I've ever seen
in a movie full of stupid written scenes. But yeah,
Detective Justice has this throwaway
sorry,
line.
every time you say his name,
I know.
every time, Detective Justice.
His first name is Justice.
I don't think we ever get a last name on him though.
I don't think so either.
Because he's
anyway,
only credited as Detective Justice.
Jesus Christ. Even a comic book writer would go, no, that's too on the nose.
Yeah, that's a little ridiculous, yeah.
So he has this throwaway line where he goes, yeah, we got this back from the lab. They analyzed the seaweed on the ship.
Yeah.
And the boat that crashed. And it came from somewhere in the Atlantic in the Bermuda region, in the Caribbean. And she goes, the Caribbean? My mother was from the Caribbean.
Oh my God. Once again, sweaty, man.
Oh, and just so dumb the leaps this makes. Her mother was an anthropologist in the Caribbean.
Yep.
She never knew her dad, who we find out later was a vampire.
Yep.
So the mother was also killed, and so she's gone. But she was highly respected. So now Angela Bassett somehow makes this leap to like, I need to talk to someone about Caribbean mysticism something. I found a guy who's an expert on it, and he's at this place, and Justice goes, I've never heard of that place. And they go to it, and it's this full-on, pretty funky Caribbean club where there's a cover band doing a cover of Stevie Wonder's Superstition.
Superstitious.
But
because you get it, it's about vampires and it's superstitions.
Yeah, so they're doing it.
I don't think you've realized how brilliant that is, Brendan.
I did. It did fly right over my head. But anyway, so it is a club, and so the Dr. Van Helsing type character, Dr. Zika, is in this club, and this is where he tells all the story. A little jarring when it's in a full-on like swinging place where people are dancing behind them, and he's telling, "Oh yes, vampires are real, Nosferatu." And then he shows up.
You've got to watch out for that Nosferatu there, buddy.
He's there. He flirts with her. I mean, Maximilian, the vampire. Eddie Murphy is there.
He starts flirting there because initially she almost gets bitten by a cobra. What the fuck? Where is this? And my favorite part of this is the guy who comes over and goes, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry about my cobra almost killing you."
So I guess the bartender, for being exotic in an exotic type club, has a cobra in a glass case.
Yeah.
But I guess possibly on purpose, Maximilian causes the snake to come out so he can use that as an excuse to flirt with her because he's going to save her from it. So it snakes over to her, and this is supposed to be clever writing. And I know that Charlie Murphy and Eddie were patting themselves on the back because Maximilian sidles up to her, and he's being shot down by her, but he does say something like, "There is a killer on the loose."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh yeah?" And he goes, "Yes, very fast, very cunning." And she's like, "Oh, where is this killer?" "It's right behind you."
Yeah.
And she turns around, and there is a cobra, and she goes, "Ee!" like a victim in a Hammer movie.
Angela Bassett.
I know, and he just reaches out and grabs it with his hand and saves her, and she's like, "Oh my God, that's so awesome." And then he gives the cobra back to the bartender. Who's like, "That has never happened before."
He's normally such a nice cobra. It's just like, oh my God, this is where you get to. This is embarrassing, man, for all involved, including the cobra. But yeah, we do get the thing of him going, this cobra never worked again.
No.
But we do get the thing of him using his, "Oh, you will obey me, cobra." And I'm just like, oh, Jesus, Eddie, what are you doing, man? it's always one of those things where everybody tries to make good movies, right? But there has to be a point where if you're Wes Craven, he's well into his career. When you're shooting a scene like this, you've got to be going, yeah, this isn't working.
Yeah.
You've got to
Yeah.
know. You've got to know. So anyway, let's see.
Well, I would imagine even in dailies, though I will say the thing about dailies being you're looking scene to scene.
Yeah.
But a good director is also seeing the whole picture. So maybe the dailies scene to scene looked pretty good because they're competently done.
Yeah.
But he has to know, like, oh shit, this doesn't hang together tonally. It just doesn't.
This doesn't work. Yeah, this isn't. No. Oh, and it seems like that. I mean,
You think he probably drank when he went home?
Fucking hell. Well, I mean, that comment on the Mick Garris podcast, I think, is a good indication of him going, I'm trying to talk to Eddie about the tone, and he's being difficult.
Isn't this the same shit that we talked about with Chevy Chase and Memoirs of an Invisible Man?
This is exactly the same problem.
He claimed that he wanted to be doing a serious thing. Like, this is a real jump for me. And then on set, it's like kept doing comedy bits. And he's like, wait, what are we doing here? Because I thought you wanted this to be your
as we talked about, the difference is Eddie actually could do that. I don't think Chevy actually has the talents to do that.
I think you're absolutely right.
I think there is a scenario that if he really was serious about this, Eddie could have pulled off a good, legit vampire performance.
You're absolutely
And there
correct.
are moments here where I go like, okay, yeah, sure. But then there are other parts where I'm going, you're Eddie Murphy in vampire makeup.
Yep.
Well, that's another thing that doesn't help.
And with some big contacts, man. Some of those contacts is like, ow, that must have been painful to put in there.
How about a very silly scene? Because Kadeem Hardison is the one who's going to ruin this for Eddie by going like, man, you don't want to go out with him. He's the biggest pussy hound in all of Brooklyn. And what is this? This is like a leftover scene from Boomerang.
I know. And it also just doesn't work. We've been talking about how hard Kadeem Hardison is working at being like the comedic engine.
Yeah.
But in a scene where we're coming off of suave, sexy, dark Eddie, and then interrupted by this complete idiot here doing like the most idiot wingman thing ever. Like, girl, don't you know he isn't hurting for anything. He gets as much pussy as he wants.
There's something that, like, I want to say he says he's got a Rolodex of pussy or something like that. There's a lot of dumb stuff in here. And then to cap it all off, after she leaves, she's like, well, then fuck you. And she leaves. Eddie pulls Kadeem Hardison's tongue out to comedic length.
Yep.
And goes, if you do that again, I'm going to pull your tongue out.
He's like, your tongue is always destructive. It gets you into too much trouble and it's ruining my vibe. So watch out or I'll pull it out.
Yeah. Whatever. Well, let's talk about Preacher Pauley. I'm Preacher Pauley.
Oh, God, where's that?
Yeah.
Also, here's the thing. If Preacher Pauley's going to be a part of the movie at all, and the only reason this exists is, again, with no introduction. If we're supposed to know who Rita is, let's know a lot of this early. Like,
we should have
Rita seeks counsel from a preacher often because she's deeply religious.
Oh, yes.
It only shows up when we need it, as in right here. She's all upset, and so she needs to go talk to, because she's had these nightmare visions. And wait, has Rita already... has the roommate already been?
Yeah. I kind of skipped over that just because we sort of already talked about it. But yes, that happens after the club scene. We get the roommate having sex with who she thinks is Justice, was really Eddie.
Rita thinks that Justice, her partner, is banging her roomie.
Yeah,
but it's actually Maximilian who's basically killing her. But who's killing the roommate? But is going to set it up to look like the roommate ran away. But also set it up to make it look like the roommate screwed Justice. All of this is to try to woo Rita, or, I don't know. It's a stupid, convoluted plan. But anyway, this does upset Rita, and she has nightmarish dreams. So she runs off to the church to talk to Preacher Pauley.
Preacher Pauley.
And this is the first we meet him.
That's the thing that's crazy.
It turns out to be Eddie Murphy with some makeup on his face.
And I don't know who's doing the makeup here. It's not as good as it is in Coming to America, I don't think. It's not terrible.
No. This isn't
This isn't Rick Baker. I don't think.
I don't know who
if
did
it is,
makeup.
it's bad. I'm just saying, like, that was so much of the makeup is so great in. There you go. Here's your makeup department. Yeah, I don't know any of these people.
Well,
Robert Kurtzman. I know him.
Some of the
Kurtzman's good.
vampire stuff looks okay.
Some of the vampire stuff is good. It's the vampire stuff that's fine. Greg Nicotero worked on it, but that's the monster stuff. I'm talking about the Eddie transformation.
No,
I think Preacher Pauley's a little
as
lazy.
Preacher Pauley, he looks like he's in a. They filled out his face and all this stuff. He's wearing not a fat suit, but he's a chunkier dude.
Yeah.
But this is literally...
he's Al Sharpton. He looks exactly like Al Sharpton.
Yeah, the surface of his skin looks like latex rubber. It doesn't have pores or anything, so it's not convincing at all.
Right.
But yes, he's got a big wig on,
Preacher
and he's like, he's got his own preacher van that has his name on the outside. And she runs up to him. Oh, wait, actually...
no.
We do see Maximilian go, oh, why does she have to go to a church? I can't go into a church. But she's running up to the preacher outside, so somehow he
pulls him into the van.
First.
Yeah. It's so weird because we meet him for like 30 seconds before he's pulled into this van and and here's the thing I thought about. You don't have to go to the excuse of him actually transforming, just mind control, and they think he's Preacher Pauley, right?
Sure. Could happen.
Instead, we get like whoa, and now I'm... And the reason I keep doing that is because he keeps doing... He goes, Preacher Pauley, I'm Preacher Pauley. Preacher Pauley. That's who I am.
Yes. Because she's like going... But, I mean, she knows Preacher Pauley anyway, but it's him reasserting like, yes, I am him. I am in his body. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yes, I am Preacher Pauley.
And this is where... I chuckled a couple times in some of these sides, but I don't think I ever laughed at anything in this movie, really.
No. I did with the asides. The whole thing...
But even still, they were more like, that's pretty good. But
where he gives the big speech, but he keeps repeating a couple of words that are kind of funny. What was it? He goes, oh, no, this is not in the speech. This is when he's talking to her. He's like she goes, I was tossing into you. He goes, tossing and turning to tossing. I got you. Yeah. And she's like going, and then he's like going, I understand. Tossing and turning. I got it. And it's just his repetition of that in a very Eddie Murphy way. I was
Eddie
like,
has
that's funny.
An understanding of comedy rhythm, obviously. So
yes.
It is like, yep, you doing that? Yep. Mm-hmm. But it is.
Let's talk about that. The tossing and the turning.
But this preacher scene just feels like, this just feels like it was cut from Coming to America. Because it doesn't really have anything to do. And because what is the commentary? Because then he gets up there and we get a very comedy scene of like, well, you got to do your sermon. He's like, I don't know about that, but I think I'm going to hold on a second. Let me do this sermon. And he goes in the church. They do this
thing where
and he starts burning.
Preacher Pauley's here. Come on into the church. He's like, oh. And he walks in and his hair catches on fire and he bats it out. He's like, you know what? It's a wonderful night. We should be doing this outside. He's like, everybody out here.
Yeah.
So he's going to give his sermon from outside the church.
And his sermon is just this whole thing about like, well, evil is necessary. Therefore, evil is good. I want you to all say it to me. Evil is good.
Yeah, that's the whole thing, is that the vampire pretending to be a preacher saying, evil is good. Isn't that great?
Yeah, and you're just going like, I guess that's an evil thing for a vampire to do, but that's pretty weak.
And they all repeat stuff back to him. He's like, see that? Evil's good. Oh, yes, evil's good.
Well, and he starts calling people.
What about you there? I mean, I know he absorbs Preacher Pauley's memory, I guess, but the whole thing is just so ridiculous. Where he's like going, like you, Fred, over there. I know that you love your wife. You kiss your wife in the morning. But he goes, I know last night you were out there getting with a $2 hoe.
Yeah.
And he's like going, there's nothing wrong with it. And he goes, but see, I don't think there's anything wrong with $2 hoe. Yeah. She's a good hoe. She enjoyed herself. You enjoyed yourself. You gave her money. That helped her live. So even that's good.
This scene is a perfect example of like, well, there's the beginning of a comedy scene here, but how about we dig in and polish this up a little bit? It is just or cut it.
Or cut it. That was my other thing. How about we cut it?
Yeah. Well, because it's just the movie just hard stop. Same thing with Guido. Both of the scenes he's in are like, what does this have to do with anything?
Nothing.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Nothing.
It's dumb. Let's see, everyone. So we're through that. Yeah. We talked about. I always think we've said enough about Guido. Whatever. He goes to rob the. Oh, there's a bit where he robs the Italian restaurant. He's already been bitten by Eddie. Now this is strange. He's turned into a vampire. which is not the case though, because he gets bitten by Eddie, and then he comes in here, he goes, "Oh man, you got to get all this garlic out of here. You got to get that garlic away from me."
No, that's Max.
Oh, he turned into Guido.
Yeah,
That's what
no, he kills Guido and takes
his
form.
But then it's weird that Guido's in the police. That's right.
Yeah,
right.
and
That's
this
weird.
is another thing of where he's trying to manipulate stuff to try and get.
You know what would be more impressive? If he assumed the identity of somebody who isn't already Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be
I'm just
impressive.
going like that. It's so weird that the only people he turned into are just Eddie Murphy as well.
Yes,
but
and this is again not so great white face makeup.
But
it's
again,
not
his
nearly Guido
as good.
Voice is pretty good.
Once again, the makeup is not nearly as good as Coming to America.
No.
When he's that old Jewish guy in Coming to America, that is top
unbelievable
level stuff. Incredible makeup.
Yep.
Here it's like, oh, we didn't have the time or money or talent to do this, did we?
And I'm not sure what purpose this scene is. It's like Guido comes in and he's so over the top confronting these gangsters, and they're like, how this guy's got some balls on him, and then he basically slaughters them because he is not Guido, he's a vampire.
Right.
And did he take her hostage or something? Was that the thing?
Well, she arrests him because she takes him back to the NYPD.
Oh, right. That's
and then he breaks out of there because he mind controls a woman to like grab a cop's gun so he can get out in the chaos. But then you just get another scene where she's going to get hit by the speeding taxi and he saves her. And it's just now we've just reset again. And he's like, I'm sorry for my friend the other night. I
don't remember at what point, because literally the flow of the movie is gone from my head after watching it yesterday.
Well, there isn't a flow to the movie. That's another problem. Like, that's what I'm talking about, like tone problems, but also just structural problems too.
When he gets her back to his place.
Yeah.
I'll let the sirens go by. But anyway, but essentially, when he gets her back to his place, which is Kadeem Hardison's junked out place,
but he's turned it into this amazing, classy.
Well, he actually says, and again, this is like whenever the movie needs something, it's just explained in this quick one-off thing. He goes, "I used all of my spells."
Yeah.
Spells?
Once again,
I put question mark.
Voiceover. And once again, voiceover going like, boy, I had just enough magic. Well, I'm sorry, there's a limited amount of magic you have.
But also,
what?
Magic?
Yeah.
The vampire has full-on magic spells that go past his vampirism. And the thing is, he is conjuring an illusion of this unbelievably swanky apartment, and he's playing piano, and it's all very romantic, and he saw that she had on her desk when he was in the police department a Van Gogh like postcard.
Yeah.
So when she comes to his place, he has the original, and of course it's all an illusion. She goes, "Oh my God, is that the original?" He's like, "Yes, he is one of my favorites." And I'm like going, I'm sorry, even an idiot without, this is pre-internet world of 1994, would still know that the original of any Van Gogh is not hanging in this guy's Brooklyn apartment.
Nobody has that. Like, that's not a thing that,
So it's just fucking stupid. But he is wooing her hardcore.
Now, we talked about the band playing Superstition. Can I talk about the abhorrent use of No Woman, No Cry for this dance? What is this song choice? So weird.
It's Jamaican,
but like it's such a weird song to use as like a sexy, seductive song. What?
It is a beautiful and slow moving song, so they can dance to it.
Yeah.
And for some reason, there's this recurring thing where he's like going, "She will be mine after one dance," and you're like, "What's this thing that they keep bringing back with dancing?" Because it's not a big part of it, but they keep mentioning it. But so they slow dance to it. And I'm like, yeah, but the lyrics here, that's not a song that's about romance. And why would you make it into a song that's about romance?
I don't know. And it is the amount of times in this movie I was like, what's this now?
Yeah.
What happened? Who are you doing? Yeah. I mean, and there are so many more uses of his powers and stuff that are like, what?
Yep. But he made this place look awesome, and now he's wooing her. They're dancing.
Yeah,
or they're about to dance, and she says something like, "Oh, I don't really like to dance," or he's like, "What?"
And now we get Detective Justice showing up, and he's like, "Hey, where's Rita?" And now it's his turn to be upset because Kadeem Harson's like, oh no, this is John Witherspoon going, oh they've been fucking all night, man, fucking and all, bang 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 bang. There he's back to his boomerang thing, and he's just, and it does feel like John Witherspoon going, you want me to do? Well, I guess that worked in Boomerang. Okay, sure.
Yeah, I'll do it. It's I guess something that I'm known for.
Yeah,
bang 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 bang.
Is it? Please say this isn't becoming my catchphrase. Just don't want that. It is.
You sure you don't want any of my other? Nope. Bang bang. All right. Okay.
You sure about this, Wes? Just bang 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 bang. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I can. 4 bangs. Okay.
But yes, this is upsetting. Now Justice is jealous.
Oh no.
Oh.
But once again, you're just going like, I don't give a shit about any of this. Why not just make him her boyfriend instead of her partner? I mean, that would have made, or something.
Or if you're going this route, I mean, indicate that they had dated before
or something. Or
instead, it's like, what's their connection? I don't.
And they have
it.
no. I mean, Basset and Murphy barely have chemistry. These two have zero
chemistry.
Absolutely. So let's see here. Oh yeah, he goes over there, and then he barrels into her apartment, and she's been asleep all day, and she does start making out with him, but when she looks in the mirror, fangs come out of her mouth, and and
she's very faded.
Yeah.
She's Marty McFlying in the mirror.
So, but here's the thing I don't understand. She's half vampire, right? And he's what? Just unlock the vampire side of her?
I believe that is the case, yes.
Yeah, okay, that's weird. Once again...
Also, the half vampire thing, which they never actually say, but there is a term for that. Dompier is a half vampire, but she has nothing supernatural about her except for her weird dreams up till Maximilian sexes her up. And now she's like, oh my God. And she's totally lusty after Justice, which will be my new podcast. And it'll be my true crime podcast. Lusty After Justice.
Brendan Jones is Lusty After Justice.
And they, so the makeout scene has no heat, but it's all about her being tempted to bite him because she's starting to feel that vampire thing, and the fangs show up, and then she pulls back.
She's like, no.
She's like, what have I become?
And you're just going like, there's like 20 minutes left in the movie at this point too, where you're just going like, oh, we just got to wrap this thing up here, don't we?
Yep.
Well, it's a little late in the movie to go, what have I become? That's my attitude. Yep. So she runs off. She goes to Eddie, and he's like, yes, you're a vampire. In fact, your father was a vampire, and he was a good friend of mine. And there's this, once again, all the history is done in this like dialogue where he's just like, yes, he gave his life for your mother's. And you're like, okay,
yeah.
And who killed her? People who, I mean, there's once again, there's something in the idea of they were a persecuted people and they've become extinct except for Eddie. That's interesting. That could be something, but the movie really isn't interested in talking about that.
It's all about, it's the Eddie show. It's the Sexy Eddie show.
Hey, everybody, it's the Sexy Eddie show. Oh, too hot in the hot tub. That's the Sexy Eddie show.
Oh my God.
That's just.
I'm gonna get in the water. Yeah. Is it gonna make me wet? Yeah.
Ow.
Go get in the water. Is it gonna make me sweat? Yeah.
Too hot in the hot tub. Yeah.
James Brown, Celebrity Hot Tub. Yeah. Still a fucking funny skit.
And the whole joke is just he never gets in the hot tub, and it's hilarious.
Oh, he does at the very end.
But it is just him dipping his foot and going, yow, too hot in the hot tub.
Next on James Brown, Celebrity Hot Tub, Dr. Joyce Brothers. And there's like that Photoshop thing of Dr. Joyce Brothers in the hot tub with James Brown.
Yeah. I mean, look, we don't need to keep listing the bona fides. The man's a comedy genius, and this is a miss, but it doesn't take
the bona fides?
Bona fides?
The bona fides.
I believe both are acceptable.
Yeah, but I'm from the South. I'm bona fide.
I'm bona fide. This could have used some Randy Watson in it, is all I know.
Oh my God! Now here's the thing. I know it's terrible for white men like us to do Eddie Murphy skits in any capacity, but it's only because both to both of us, you just half generation later, but for me, literally coming up with that guy as a preteen and teen when he's hitting on SNL,
Yeah.
I cannot stress how much of a god that man was to me. Also, and just with any comedian that hit me like Steve Martin, at even earlier, I memorized stuff.
Yeah.
And George Carlin and people like that. It's like I could do entire skits, because I'm trying to develop a persona of my own, and all I can think is how brilliant these people are. And that's why it hurts when you see someone this talented who's still talented in this movie.
Yeah.
It's not like he's sleepwalking.
That's actually that's the one thing Craven does say. He goes, "Oh yeah, well it didn't work and he was pretty difficult." He goes, "But my God, that man is talented."
Yes.
And he goes, "It's amazing to watch him turn into other people and just, and it like a lot of comedy people with their persona, right? It is sort of a thing where it's like, well, that was a good vehicle for it. That one wasn't. I mean, you mentioned Steve Martin. He's got a bunch of stinkers too.
Oh my God, that man. But I would say the grand total of his career is mainly stinkers with gems of pure genius.
But that's the thing, is the highs are so high.
So fucking
like
high.
Some of the greatest comedies ever made. And I think
about as high as I am, John.
Look out, man.
I'm so fucking high right now.
So this is all, and Eddie, this is where Eddie's flying, and he goes,
yep.
And he's immediately
he shuts Justice down too at some point, right? Throws him into a wall. Am I getting things mixed up?
Well, we got to have Justice go to Dr. Zico, and then they together come after Eddie. But first we get the scene where Eddie takes Angela Bassett out going, "Come on, you got to go drink blood with me.
Yes.
You're going to like it."
Oh man, there's a whole thing during the seductive part where he's like going, "Breathe in the night."
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I know that there are tropes in vampire movies, but can we restate them some other way?
Breathe in the night. Yeah, it is just going like,
hear it calling to you.
And a lot of it is just clearly Eddie going, "I want to do the vampire shit, man. I want to do all the vampire stuff." And you're like, yeah, but the problem with that is there's lots of vampire stuff. Why don't you do the Eddie Murphy take on the vampire stuff? I think that's a big thing, is there is no take on vampires here. It's just him going, "No, I want to be Dracula, and I'll make it make sense by saying I'm a Caribbean Dracula," and that's about all I'm putting into this. Other than that, I'm just doing a Dracula, because I do think his performance gets super boring from here on out when he's just in bad guy mode.
Yeah, it's kind of true.
I mean, he's trying to be sinister, but
to it, yeah,
but you're just going like, this is just kind of weak vampire shit. The third act of this movie is just so stock vampire movie.
Yep.
Because
she is mine. No, she will not be yours. I will stop you. Her going, "I'm torn. Maybe I am a vampire and want to be bad, or maybe I'm not."
And then eventually she's just unconscious for a lot of this.
Yep.
What is this movie does here where he blows out almost like Superman's super breath and then disappears? Yep. What is that? What was that?
Knows? I don't know. The man turned a dog into a rocket earlier.
There's also a scene when he breaks a mirror just by looking at it.
Yep.
Because he hates mirrors. We didn't talk about that. That's a thing too. He's like, "Get that mirror out of here. I hate mirrors." We're just going like, yeah, so did Bela Lugosi in 31, man.
Yep.
And I know you've seen it because you're, once again, you can't fool me. I can smell a nerd, man. We know our own. And the Eddie's a nerd, so
one of us.
I mean, because you look at Harlem Nights, it's the same thing where he's like, "Well, this is just me doing my gangster movie now," and you're like,
"Yep,
great."
Another movie I wanted to work.
It works
because I love the idea.
When you get the 3 generations of him and Red Fox and Richard Pryor,
dude, that is so good.
I think,
except for the movie's not good.
It's not great. I do think it has much more redeeming quality than this, but
it's better than this.
It does.
But
it
still
generally
not
doesn't.
As good as it should have been.
That I completely agree with. It is not as good as it should have been. I don't think it's the disaster people make it out to be, but I agree. It should have been so much better. And I remember renting it.
About that amazing.
Boy, I remember renting that as a kid, going, "How have I never heard of this? Look at who's in this." And
that's right. So you came to it later, because I remember the press build up to this.
I came to it a little bit later but I remember finding that and going like, "Oh my God, these guys are geniuses. This has got to be the funniest movie. Why does nobody ever talk about this?" And I think that's
then you watch.
Yeah, then it's like then you go like, "Well, it's not bad. It's just it's not that funny.
Nope.
That was the thing with it, where you just go, you see those three guys, you go, this must just be laugh a minute. You're like, oh, it's okay.
Man.
Yeah. So let's wrap this thing up. Yeah, you get Dr. Zico, who why does he jam the steak into his stomach instead of his heart?
He just misses.
Yeah. And I do actually like that beat when he goes, and once again, in a better movie and a thing that makes more sense, when he goes like, this is my stomach, this is my heart, stomach, heart, stomach, heart. That's good, actually.
That is good.
But
and
what movie is that from?
I like the beat, but yeah, yeah, in a different movie that was conceptually and tonally tight, that would have worked.
Yeah. We also get Kadeem Hardison trying to fight Justice, but his eye falls out.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you got him going, "Where's my eye? I gotta find my eye." And then Justice steps on it.
And then Justice actually is trying to help him find it.
But accidentally steps on it. And
accidentally steps on it.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, no.
I laughed so hard that there were complaints
Once
in my
again,
build.
I am watching it going, God damn, Kadeem Hardison, you are committing to this stupid bit like nobody's business, man. He is here to play.
MVP, not that he saves the movie, he doesn't, but that man's working harder than anybody else.
Really, really is. And so finally you get him getting knocked. Oh, you get this scene that's Eddie just like, to borrow an X-Men phrase, he's bamfing around this room. Every time Justice swings at him, he appears somewhere else in the room. That's fine, because once again, Craven is shooting it fine. They just don't care.
Also, I there's the because it's all of a piece. He's just like, I want everything I like in this movie. Yeah. So part of this fight scene is Justice doing like full on Karate Kid kung fu
out of nowhere. Like, nothing established about his character. Yeah,
it's as if he was like going, ooh. And here's stuff I loved when I watched blaxploitation movies when I was a kid. Let's put this in here. And
well, there's the Dolomite stuff, right? Like, I mean, which
sure,
that was
except for the gag was that Dolomite was terrible and had never actually studied that stuff, and that's why it's great.
Yep,
because it's not even bad karate; it's made up.
But so Justice gets, of course, thrown across the room. Also, Angela Bassett can then stake Eddie Murphy, and you're like, oh, okay.
Well, yeah, the whole thing is there's the non-suspenseful thing of her telling Justice, no, I want to be this. Yeah. You don't understand. You're in jeopardy because I might bite you because I'm now a full-on vampire and I love Maximilian. And then Maximilian's looking all smug and she hugs him close and she's like going, I belong to you forever. And then, of course, that's all to lure him in so she can then put the stake through his chest. And she's like going, but I will never be what you are, whatever it is. And he goes, what? And he dies.
Still a vampire, right?
He kind of dies, but then turns into a bat.
Oh, and the whole upper floor of the building explodes.
Right, and the bat escapes with smoke, and also for some reason we see his ring that he's been wearing, which has not been set up as being any kind of artifact or special thing, but it falls through the air outside of the building on top of the limousine.
Yeah.
This is important for the ending. But anyway, so yes, Rita is now back to normal, I guess, because she killed Eddie Murphy, even though he's clearly not dead because there was that bat.
But that makes no sense because it's not a curse. It just is who you are.
Right. But now she's like, oh, I'm so happy again. Oh, by the way, we missed the whole thing about the roommate was found crucified up on a water
but
tower.
But also, once again,
it was a good shot. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, because Craven can do that shit. And once again, in his sleep, man, he's good at that. But but why? Why did he do that?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing where you just go like, that's the thing. It's like there are things in here where I'm going like, ooh, that was something. If you bothered to like dig
that
into
had been set up by her nightmares. She had been seeing that in her nightmares, and then it's exactly like her painting from her nightmare. But again, that doesn't pay off if there's no through line, and we don't care.
There's no there.
So anyway,
yeah.
So she's happy now and human with Justice as her boyfriend. This is great. Now we cut to
this is the weirdest beat. Kadeem Hardison, who finds Eddie's ring, which I guess.
Oh, well, hold on. Kadeem Hardison, who's basically held together at this point by glue,
Yep.
comes downstairs. His master is dead, but his uncle, who I do think, funny enough, Witherspoon through the whole thing, it knows what's going on because he did meet Maximilian, so he knows that there was a vampire and that his nephew is a ghoul. But he's been very okay with everything. He's like going, "Oh, your master's dead? That means the car is ours." Like they got that limo.
You throughout the whole ending, you do just get some John Witherspoon where clearly they just shot like a reel of him just doing like, "God damn."
Yeah, it's like, wow, we got this car. And so he gets in, and Kadeem Hardison's like, yeah, I guess my master's dead. I guess this is ours. So I'm going to ride in the back now. You're going to drive. So the uncle gets in the front, and he's like, damn, you looking bad. He's like, I know, right? And he goes, I guess I'll never turn into a vampire because he promised that to me, but I'm going to be this thing, whatever. And then he opens the sunroof because it's his car now. And that causes the ring to drop in. He's like, oh, damn, that's Max's ring.
Yeah.
He puts it on.
Yep.
And we don't know how this happens, but we don't know how a dog exploded either. So he
this
puts the
movie
ring
could
on,
care less about how anything works.
and he transforms like in almost like a magic wipe, where his clothes also transform. He gets these badass vampire pimp clothes, and now he's all healed. He's like, my hand's back, my eye's back, and he goes, oh look, I got fangs, and he goes, and now for some reason he's talking in a Caribbean accent, and he goes, so watch out, Brooklyn, you got a new vampire named Julius Jones, who we now know his full name is Julius Jones.
Julius Jones, professional.
And then they drive
vampire.
off. And that's the setup for a sequel.
Oh God, Jesus.
I guess
Christ.
it would have been resurrected Maximilian versus Julius Jones, maybe. Who knows?
Julius Jones, professional vampire. That's all I can think about for some reason. And boy, this was a bit I was doing last week, but boy, when he put that ring on, we should have got I feel good.
Oh Jesus. How close were they to that needle drop?
So close. Instead, we get a reprise of Superstitious.
Yep.
Very superstitious. Great
As
song.
the limo drives through Brooklyn,
Yeah.
and the end.
I guess. Oh, Jesus Christ. Here's the thing. This is really bad, but in the spectrum of our show, it's not that bad because it is still competently made. It is bad particularly when you think about it. Now, I don't recommend, when we get to, don't watch this. This is not worth watching at all. There's really not enough here.
Unless you're a huge Eddie Murphy fan, you'll be disappointed still,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, yeah.
This one's more disappointing than some of the other stuff we've done is objectively absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
This is because this has the resources of a big studio movie and a good director and good actors who are doing the best they can with weak material. So
yes, weak material.
Brandon, this was a vampire movie that tried to be sexy. Next week we're gonna watch a vampire movie that tries to really, really be sexy.
I can only assume this is probably Ernest Saves Halloween.
You got it. Yeah, that Jim Varney. No, we are watching Embrace of the Vampire next week.
Oh shit, we're already there, huh?
Yeah, it's time to
This
embrace
is Alyssa Milano's
it's time
naughty vampire movie.
It's time to embrace that vampire, baby.
I
if
don't. It was Alyssa Milano or her co-star. Who's her co-star? Very sexy lady. What's her name?
I don't know.
The titular vampire that is seducing her.
Oh, wait a minute now. It's a male vampire that's seducing her.
Oh, no. The whole thing about there is a male vampire in it.
Yeah.
But really the whole focus is on this sexy Asian lady vampire who seduces her.
Oh, wait,
they end up in a threesome, I remember.
Is that Rebecca?
From Cinemax back in the day.
Is that Rebecca Ferrati?
No.
Okay. It's obviously not Jennifer Tilly or Jordan Charlotte Lewis, yes. From The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
One we do split on because I fucking love The Golden Child.
Terrible movie.
A great movie. But
one of the worst films ever committed.
All right, come on, even you don't think that. Yes, I don't think I've ever seen this movie.
I did back in the.
I know.
Back in
I know.
days.
Tell. I mean, in fact, I'm looking at a video cover that literally calls it the sexiest vampire movie ever made, and I have a feeling it's not that sexy, really. But
No, I just remember back in the day, people losing their mind over the fact that the little girl from Who's the Boss is taking her top off
yeah,
and making out with the sexy lady.
I think
And then
maybe
they're
I
like,
think maybe that's a little bit of why it didn't have as much appeal to me. Was Alyssa Milano was always a sexy lady in the time I grew up. Like there was not a man. She was a child, and now it was always like.
oh yeah, you missed the transformation.
Yeah, these were already the thing when I was going, and then you get to Charmed and stuff like that.
Sure. Which actually I was very glad that came along, because a lot of actresses that are better ended up in a fallow period in the 90s, including like Drew Barrymore was doing like Poison Ivy and stuff. And you're like,
I have.
you're a
seen
much
Poison
better
Ivy.
actor than that. And thank God things like The Wedding Singer came
Yeah.
along to like save them.
You know what's very interesting,
because
of
it was
course.
all that direct to, video sexy movie stuff.
What's very interesting, of course, is Alyssa Milano did Poison Ivy too.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah, so
It all comes full circle.
yeah. I will say that we'll talk about next week. She does not have great things to say about working on that movie, and I think felt quite exploited by that film, Embrace of the Vampire. So we'll talk about that next week.
Yes. However, with all these things, I truly believe whatever her experience is. But was she tricked into being in the film? Did they trick her into being naked? I wonder when people after the fact go, "Oh, that was totally exploitative. I had no idea I was going to be." That had to be in the contract that you were going to get naked.
Well, I think, yeah, we'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
All right.
But that's next week on the show. I don't, like I said, I don't think I've ever seen it. I'm more. I know all the thing about it selling as a sexy vampire movie. I'm curious about just how much of a vampire movie it's going to be. That's more what I'm curious about, because like I said, the nudity and the sex of it has always been the selling point of it. There's not there's no vampire on the poster.
If I remember correctly, the reason it leans that way is that there is no budget for real effects and stuff. There's blood drinking, but I don't think we get any. I don't remember turning into mist or bats or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it's a real, almost The Hunger-ish, not. They are vampires in the traditional sense, but I don't remember it leaning on that. It's just all about sexiness.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm innocent, but I'm being seduced by this ancient, sexy guy and his ancient, sexy girlfriend.
Well, then be sure you tune in next week for the steamy episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. Good Lord, it's just going to be the two of us going.
Bring a plate of clams and perhaps some vegetables, because they will be well steamed.
We're steaming it up next week, but that's going to do it for this week's episode of Campbell and Jones Meet the Monsters. I'm John Campbell.
I'm Brendan Jones.
And remember, there are such things as monsters.
Sexual chocolate!